Under the title of Scope and Applications of Microbiology, the next topic or the area which is covered under microbiology is immunology. Immunology, it deals with the study of defensive mechanisms of the body and their use in diagnosis of diseases or disorders. That means this immunology, it involves the study of all the defensive mechanisms or the resistance power of the body. So whatever the mechanisms, parts, components, cells which are involved in the protecting of our body from different types of pathogens or antigens. As well as this immunology, it involves the use of antigens and antibodies for the diagnosis of diseases or disorders. The defensive mechanism or the resistance power of the body, it is called as immunity. There are several defensive mechanisms that occur in human body. These defensive mechanisms are classified into three categories, which are called as three lines of defensive mechanisms. This means that whenever any pathogen causes a disease or it is responsible for the production of disease, in that case that pathogen has to cross these three barriers: first barrier, second barrier, and third barrier, which are called as three lines of defensive mechanisms. Basically these three lines are categorized into two: non-specific and specific resistance. First line of defensive mechanisms and second line of defensive mechanisms are classified as non-specific. Third line of defensive mechanism is classified as specific resistance. Now, the first line of defense mechanisms, which is non-specific. Non-specific means it is not responsible for the elimination of specific microorganism, or it does not recognize the organism as it is a virus, it is a protozoan, it is a fungus, or it is a bacterium. So non-specifically, if there is entry of any foreign material means foreign microorganisms. So all these foreign microorganisms, irrespective of their type, are eliminated or killed by first line of defensive mechanism, that is called as non-specificity. So this involves external defensive mechanisms which are responsible for mechanical removal and chemical barriers which are responsible for the killing of microbes. These mechanical barriers are generally formed by the skin and the mucous membrane, which are accompanied by surface secretions, antimicrobial substances which are secreted by skin, by sebaceous glands and sweat glands. Another example of this mechanical barrier is mucous membrane. So you see all the important systems of our body, for example respiratory system, gastrointestinal system, urinary tract, reproductive tract, all these systems are internally lined with mucous membrane. So this mucous membrane, it is a membrane of cells, mucus secreting cells, and these cells are responsible for the secretion of a sticky substance called as mucus. This mucus, it traps the dust particles, it traps the microorganisms, and ultimately prevents the entry of these microorganisms inside the body tissues or cells. So mucus, it is a thick jelly fluid like substance which acts as a lubricant, which contains a protein called as mucin. So this prevents the drying out, and it also helps in the removal of microorganisms. Another example of first line of defense is acidity of stomach. So stomach is a part of gastrointestinal tract. So stomach contains acid whose pH is less than 2, and due to this acidic pH, highly acidic pH, microorganisms are digested in the stomach. Then there are several other body secretions which are responsible for the killing or elimination of microorganisms. This involves tears, saliva. These secretions contain an antimicrobial substance called as lysozyme. Lysozyme is an enzyme which is responsible for the degradation of bacteria. This is the picture of skin. On the topmost surface, that is epidermis, we can see this presence of pores. These pores arise from either sweat gland or sebaceous gland. In this diagram, oil gland is considered as the sebaceous gland. Sebaceous gland is present along with the hair follicle, responsible for the secretion of a fluid called as sebum, which is antimicrobial. Sweat gland is responsible for the secretion of sweat, which is also antimicrobial. This is case of mucous membrane. You can see at the topmost layer there is a mucus coat. Below that mucus coat there are cilia. These cilia are attached to these globate cells. These globate cells are nothing but the mucus secreting cells, and whatever the mucus which is secreted out, it is moved with the help of the cilia present on the cell surfaces. This is a more closer diagram in case of respiratory tract. In case of bronchioles, these types of mucus cells are present. These mucus cells are ciliated, which contains the cilia. So cilia is responsible for the flow of mucus. This is how the microorganisms are trapped in the mucus, and then this mucus in which the microorganisms are trapped are transported towards the digestive tract from the respiratory system. This is how they are involved in the elimination of microorganisms, and it prevents the entry of microorganisms into different tissues. In this case, for example, respiratory tissues like alveoli. Then the another type of defensive mechanism is second line of defense. This second line of defense is also non-specific. It is not able to recognize the particular type of pathogen. So this involves the different types of reactions. For example, inflammation, phagocytosis, complement fixation, and interference. These are the components of second line of defense. Let us see the first reaction, inflammation. Inflammation is the cellular reaction that is produced due to the entry of foreign materials inside the body. And this inflammation reaction is essential for the removal of microorganisms for the prevention of infection or disease. Say for example, if there is any